Summer just getting into full swing. The 4th of July just around the corner. Many people considering if there's any travel at all to be had this summer. And if so, how could you do it safely amid COVID-19? Well, it's time to rejoin our 9 Health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, with some tips on how and if to travel during a pandemic. So, Dr. Kohli, let's talk about it. What advice would you offer for people who are choosing some place to go for a vacation?
Yes, hi Tom. Summer is definitely in full swing and people are asking this question a lot. So let's talk about it. So when you're thinking about where to go on vacation, you want to think about your personal risk and you also want to think about the risk of the vacation. And the way to assess the risk of the vacation is to ask yourself 3 questions. Where are you going? How are you going? And who's going to be there? So the first question, where are you going? So this is a really important part of choosing a vacation because the last thing you want to do right now is go to a state like Florida, Arizona, or Texas where the case activity is going up. So think hard about what the disease activity is doing where you're thinking of going. The second question is, how are you going? So you want to think about ways to travel that are going to minimize your contact. So whether that's a short road trip or whether that's a short plane flight or, just going somewhere else where you can go and come back in the same day. You really want to try to travel to places where you're going to have the least amount of contact. And then the third is who's going to be there. So is it going to be a place where you're mostly going to be isolated with your friends and family, like a camping trip on this end of the spectrum? Or is it going to be a place where there's a lot of people from lots of parts of the community, like a crowded casino or resort? So the highest risk vacation, in my opinion, would be a trip to Florida to go to a resort right now. And the lowest risk vacation would be a camping trip that's drivable distance from your house with your family.
So that makes a road trip sound safer than flying right now?
That's a great question. A lot of people are asking. So it's not, again, so much about the mode of transportation, but more about the contact. So obviously the shortest road trip is the safest mode of transportation because you haven't stopped along the way. But if you're thinking of, flying somewhere shorter as opposed to a road trip that's going to take 3 or 4 days where you're stopping a lot along the way, that may actually be a safer option. So really you want to think about who and where you're going to come into contact with when you're deciding whether to drive or to fly somewhere, and try to minimize that contact. And if you're flying on a plane, there are some tips you can follow. Try to sit in the window seat rather than the aisle seat, because studies have actually shown that people who sit in the window seat have less contact because there are fewer people walking through the aisles and the air patterns are a little bit different. And then of course, if you're driving, you want to try to minimize the stops along the way and try to minimize stopping at gas stations or restrooms. Try to book a direct flight whenever you can so that you're not laying over or changing planes in many cities.
See, me, I'm bigger on the private jet. It's a much safer way to go. So that's just my advice. That's the way I look at it. Dr.
It is safe to invite the 9 Health expert onto your private jet too.
Right. That's a good, safe decision as always. Dr. Payal Kohli, thanks as always. Good to see you.